Have you ever wanted to become better at copywriting, whether that's email marketing, just writing something like your bio, or even writing something like a synopsis for a script or a storyline? We're going to be going through all that today with the amazing Holly Williams, who is a conversion copywriter and an incredible storyteller. And we even dive into a little bit of mindset for artists. Stay tuned. Hey, Holly, how's it going?
Hey, so good to see you, Jen.
It's so good to see you too. It's been such a long time.
I know. We've been working together for a while, off and on.
Yeah. So Holly and I first met back when I was teaching email marketing. She was in my beta course, which was really cool. And then she did some copywriting for me for a lot of my stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, in a big way, Jen. You were probably like one of the first people, like, I think one of your course was probably one of the things that I remember I phoned you and I said, like,
Yeah.
can you wait till my tax return comes in? Like it was one of those like do or die moments.
Yeah.
And then but your support and your help for me was so great. And then once I kind of got some stuff underneath my feet, then you gave me opportunity to I think you ran your course again and you gave me opportunity to like work with your actual students, and that got me
Yeah.
my clientele going. So yeah, you've been a really big part of me just getting my entrepreneurial journey off the ground. So
That's
we wouldn't be
awesome.
here today without you.
Aw. I didn't know like the last part that they like a lot of my students ended up being your clients. It's amazing. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, so great.
Incredible. Well, I'm so glad it worked out. And you're all in for a special treat today because we're going to be going through how to be creative in storytelling and copywriting, especially for those doing email marketing right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And we can actually go a little bit beyond it, Jen. I'm really excited
Mm,
because I know your audience is for actors, producers, people in the
mm,
film and acting world. And
mm,
so something that correlates probably really well. I have a sister. I'm very proud of her. Her name's Amy Lintonen. She lives in
mm,
Toronto. She is a tap dancer, professional tap dancer, a
mm.
producer. She's produced a couple of shows, or a show that's gone on to win the Spirit Award at the
Oh,
Fringe
wow.
Festival in Toronto. So very, very proud of my sister. And she has had to do everything from writing her bio to writing grants to,
Mm,
writing up the write-ups of her shows,
mm,
promotion materials for their shows. And so a lot of those things that she's done, I've helped her
mm.
with. I've finessed that work for her. And
Yeah.
that's a lot of stuff that actors need to do, right? There's a lot of
Mm.
self-promotion that goes into being an
Oh,
artist.
oh,
And
yes.
so we can kind of cover some of those topics today too, because when you're starting out in the acting world in particular, right?
Mm.
I wrote up your IMBD.
Yeah, my bio.
Yeah, I think I helped write out that, so there's all these like moving pieces to really
Mm,
establish yourself as a professional. And that's
mm,
where some really good copy or some really good strong writing can really make you
mm.
stand out in your industry. So let's
Yeah,
talk.
and it's true too because so many people like to skim documents now too. So having that good writing so that they're catching certain things as they're skimming through, like say your bio, is important, right? And so that
Yeah.
you're not just like rambling on and you have it finessed. So they're like, oh, okay, I see that, I see that, I see that. So that's a big factor too, because people have short attention spans right now. So we want to be able to like catch their eye with certain things within the copy.
Yeah. So here's like a really great tip. You're talking about, yeah, that people like to scan. So
Mm,
it's like any good storytelling. We want to
mm,
drop people in the middle of a story, make them
mm.
really excited. I mean, that's the Stephen King approach to storytelling, right? Like drop them
Yeah.
in the middle of something,
Mm,
there's different ways to write stories, but let's just give people a
mm,
tip for writing a bio. So for my
mm,
sister, when she first started out, she had this incredible range of stuff. She had been, working with Brenda Buffalino, who's a
mm,
very well known and respected in the tap community. She was
mm.
working in New York with different individuals. She had been in Italy and working with people. So she had this really eclectic gathering, as you do as an artist, right?
Yeah.
Because you're pursuing your passions. So she was like, I don't know how to tie these together. So
Mm,
I just said, what element speaks the most to you? Wind, water,
mm.
fire, what
Yeah.
piece of nature kind of connects to you. And so for her, it was mountains. She loves mountains. So we just, in her writing, in her bio, we just kind of we took the word mountain, we created all these different words like climbing, journey, reaching to an apex, looking around the surroundings. So then when we wrote her story, it really felt like when you were reading her bio, you felt like you were on the climb. And then when you got to the end of it just talked about how, Amy's, reached a point in her professional journey where she realizes, as you do when you reach the top of a mountain, there's so much possibility out there. And she's excited to work with you, right? So it creates a story. You want the people reading it to have a little bit of goosebumps. So that is just one tip that you can use to kind of write so if you're really go with the flow and maybe water's moving, like just take that, kind of play with those words. And then I'll give you one more tip. Go to wordhippo.com and you can type in your word and they'll give you lots of different kind of correlating words that go with it. So if you need to write your bio, there you go.
That's a really great tip, because so often, especially when you're doing media, they're like, can we have your 3-sentence bio, right? And it's like, okay, now I got to condense everything I do down into 3 sentences. So having like a structure like that to write it and then be able to take like the main parts out of your bio for those 3 sentences, that'd be great.
Yeah. And so, let's just talk a minute about the 3-sentence bio, because that can be really tricky, right? And there's that typical formula, like if you're an entrepreneur, right? You're like, hi, I'm Holly. I help. So-and-so do this, and so that they can blah, blah, blah. And I mean, that's pretty typical, and that's great. That's a great starting point. You should have that nailed down. But when you want to stand out as that artist or stand out as that creative person, there's different ways you can do it. You can take some of, like, let's say you're embarrassed because you're like, I've been in all these small bit parts or whatever. Well, own that. Say like, she has mastered the role of being in different places, and this hidden people who we overlook, like talk about, if you're a background person or if you've only had the one-liner, you can talk about mastered one-lines and no problem, like just own where you're at in your journey, and then talk about where you're going or what you want to give your audience, right? Like I love to impact audiences. I love to make them think. I love to make them question the meaning of life. Like, what do you like to do with your art? And that's how you can kind of give it a spin that's a little bit different.
Yeah. And that's not only a great copywriting tip, that's a great mindset tip too, because so often we try and hide the elephant in the room that we're embarrassed about, right? Where if you just call it out.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of years ago, I can't remember if it was an Oscar or an Emmy or whatever, but this guy won it. And he had been in the industry for like 40 years. Nobody had really heard about him. And he had been doing plays off Broadway and things like that. And he just talked about how, like some people just have different careers, and all he decided to do was dedicate excellence to what he was doing. And so, and to really build relationships with the people he was around, like whatever crew he was with, whatever team of actors he was with, he just kept building relationships with them, which then allowed for great networking to get into different roles that, 10 years later, somebody remembered him, pulled him into this event that I think, got him this award or whatever. But it was because the whole time he was committed to his craft, right? Which is what we all need to be doing. I'm a writer, so I'm committed to my craft. I put my butt in the chair and I write and I rewrite and I take courses and I have people critique my work and I just get better at it. And the more that you do, that opportunity opens up for yourself, and you just have to be committed to that. And then you also have to say yes to the right opportunity.
saying yes is a good one. But I also say that saying no to some stuff is also creating opportunity, right? Because sometimes we overload ourselves, which guilty. So it's knowing what opportunities to say yes to, I feel, and knowing which ones to say no to, so that you can say yes to other things that would actually serve you better, I feel.
Yeah, I really loved, I don't know if you, I think it's Lauren Graham who played Lorelai Gilmore, right?
Gilmore.
So I don't know if you know, she wrote a novel, and it was something I bought for my sister one year, because she does, this novel is such a great, because she's basically her own life, or pulled from her own life, but it's an actor's journey into getting the right role. And I think she's stuck so many of her own life lessons in there. And it's really just about any artist, right? Any person really committed to their craft and what it looks like to go through the ups and downs of that. So if you're not a person who likes the nonfiction type of things. Read Lauren
Yeah.
Graham's on that, and you'll get a really good class on
Yeah.
what it looks like to make it in the industry.
That's awesome. I didn't know that she had written a book. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, it's a really great one. You'll love it. It's very inspiring.
Awesome. So you were hoping to take us through an exercise today, weren't you? Of how
Yes.
to get better at storytelling.
Yeah, I love storytelling, which is really, so you introduced me as like, we're going to talk about email marketing. We've been a little bit all over the map, but the truth is that
Yeah.
like, there's this argument that says like, people don't read emails, or people don't read anything on the internet that's long.
Yeah.
But the truth is people don't read anything that's boring.
That's true.
So people read what they're interested in, and sometimes that's email. So that's kind of a quote from a different marketer who said, like, people read what they're interested in. Sometimes that's an ad. And so you want to write things that are interesting. If you are an actor, or you're a producer, or you're doing something right now and you're trying to build that list, build that following, just use this as another medium to practice your storytelling capabilities. And we can get into a couple of different ideas on that, but let's do your exercise first.
Sure. So we were going to do, I have a movie that we're producing this year called The Emotional Terrorist. So I have like the little synopsis in the chat for Holly right now. So a 35-year-old woman, Emma Taylor, thinks she has found the perfect man after a slew of bad relationships. The events that follow have Emma thinking she stepped into her own psychological thriller. So the movie's about somebody who's actually, so she goes through a couple of bad relationships. She thinks she's found the perfect man, and this man actually ends up having narcissistic personality disorder. And so he's a little bit cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. So we are trying to figure out how to convey this story to get people interested to watch the movie. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I told Jen this, I usually, like, we're going to play with ideas on the fly here. Normally I would probably fiddle around with this writing physically, like I actually have to write things out for my best ideas, but part of creating really good story, right, is with other people. Like, we can always have a really good idea ourselves, but I'm sure you found in this, right, the collaborative process is what's really brought out a lot of ideas. So you and I might just kick back and forth some ideas here. So one of the things that I would do with your write-up is, because already Emotional Terrorist, already it's given me an idea of what this might be about, right? So what I'd love to see is language that kind of makes me wonder, who is the terrorist? Like, is it actually this guy, or is it her? Right. So I'd love to like see some juxtaposition with the words where it's like, Emma and what's this guy's name?
James.
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 Okay. Emma and James are the perfect couple, and after a slew of bad relationships, Emma has found the love of her life, and James can't be more thrilled, that he's found somebody. But as events start to spiral, or as events start to unfold, or as one thing leads to another, we're caught up in a tug of war of emotional drama to find out who is the emotional terrorist, right? So that's really where you'd kind of want to create some interesting tension between those two ideas, because if I'm watching it, what I love most, right, and what we all love most about really good movies is when you go in thinking something, and then the flips, or the script flips, right? So the reason everybody loved the Sixth Sense is the whole reason you were watching this movie. You thought it was for one purpose, and then all of a sudden it's revealed, no, it's not. So if you can get me with your write-up already thinking that I'm not sure what it could be, or you kind of like set me on one path, and then when I'm in the movie, it totally switches for me. I'm going to love your movie. I'm going to be so committed to your movie, right? So I would even use some language where it kind of paints her a little bit as the potential emotional terrorist, because really, when you're in a narcissistic personality disorder relationship, you on the receiving end of that, you really believe you're the problem. You are convinced, they have you convinced that if you could just better, if you could just love better, if you could just figure them out, if you could just finally meet their needs, then you can have this relationship that you really desperately want, right? So if you can paint that picture of her, like maybe she's the psycho. Maybe we're watching a woman unravel, and then all of a sudden we realize, no, it's not. And I think the other thing too is that we're all aware that even in a narcissistic personality relationship, right, it still takes two people for that relationship to exist. So there are some things that she's doing wrong in there. There are some things that are contributing to the growth and the acceleration of a relationship like that. So in a way, not that she's an emotional terrorist herself, but she is part of the problem, right? So just kind of creating different language there. And then what I would love to see you do with some of your social media is take some gaslighting scenes and make those into like quotes on Instagram or like little snippets, then like do them both, like, but send them out both and say,
I'm just gonna find the one I had done
here. Right. And you could do a write-up like from his perspective and her perspective, and like send those out and be like, who's the emotional terrorist here? And just kind of play those ideas off of each other, and just get people wondering like, oh, is the guy the emotional terrorist? Is the girl the emotional terrorist? Like, who's the one creating terror in this, right? So
that's a good idea. Like I had started kind of doing that, but it's not like the gaslighting scenes. It's, you gave me panic attacks and I called it love, but I didn't put who said it, right?
Ooh, I like that. And then you could talk about panic love, and I would actually show a picture of both of them looking stricken, right? Like, because I think one thing that people with narcissistic personality disorders do so well is they act so hurt.
They play the victim
so mortally that it's like they can't recover from this, you know? So I would love to see pictures like that next to each other, and just wondering like, who did that to the other person, right? And I'm so excited for you to develop.
Thank you. It'd be easier to do the pictures once we start doing like production and stuff, but I was trying to like start pulling out some quotes now just to build that interest until we start filming, right? So that was the one that I pulled out, because that's true, right? You stay with this person, they're giving you panic attacks, and you keep calling it love.
Right. And especially like with the love bombing, and there's like that really overwhelming amount of attention that they get right away.
Hurt and rescue.
Right. So then, and what is it? Love addiction too, that plays in there.
There's a trauma bond that comes in. So you get, the trauma bond comes in because you get addicted to the drama. And you, the trauma bonding. So I'd love to see too, you could use, I've got so many ideas for you guys. We could talk about this off camera, but you could take song lyrics, right? Like you give love a bad name. And then like, was Bon Jovi writing about this movie, you know, and like, there's so many great ideas you can do. So here's what you can do with your email marketing to your fan base, right? Like to get them to watch the movie. So let's just talk about that. How would you start to create a buzz about a project you're working on in your email marketing? So right now, start talking about, pick a story, right? So let's say I would start off an email with some dialogue even. So what was the dialogue you had? Panic attacks and love? You gave me panic attacks and I called it love.
So I would start off an email just with that and say, when I wrote those lines, my whole body started to shake, because I realized I had just dropped into the exact words of my character. And then I would, talk about just the process of like, when you finally start to write in your character's voice, it changes everything for you as a producer or director or writer or screenplay writer, whatever. And just kind of like bring people along in that little bit of journey. Then you could go on and talk about, like, let's say you're running a course on like how to act better or something. You can use that little bit of story and then just start to turn it into what you really want to talk about to them that day, right? But you're plugging your movie, you're dropping those little hints, you're getting people interested about it, right? And then you still use that as a way, that's your storytelling, to then catapult into another direction of something that you want to talk about. Or you can actually just do it as a straight on promotion of your film.
Hello, you're so good at this. Man, I can listen to you all day.
I love storytelling so much. It's so much fun. I love pulling stories out. And
Yeah.
this is the neat thing. You can pull out so many
Yeah.
stories from anything, right? Like, so people get intimidated with their email marketing or just even Instagram. So let's say you're not even on the place where you've got an email list, which you should have an email list. If you want to build a following, really, if you want to build a following, you need to have an email list. You need to own it, because an email list, you own yourself. Instagram owns your followers. You don't. We've seen many social media platforms shut down different individuals. I'm thinking there's that actor last year who was canceled from the Mandalorian.
Mandalorian,
right. So I mean, she lost a lot of her followers stuff. So you can spend all this time on Instagram building all this stuff, and then you say one wrong thing, you can be canceled, and then you've lost all these fans. So get your own email list. Get this little thing together, and it doesn't have to be a lot. It can just be one email a month when you're getting started. Just show up consistently so that you have some communication happening. But you can take any story from your life. So give me a couple examples of what's been going on in your acting life right now, Jen.
My acting life? Well, right now I'm so I like to say I'm taking my career into my own hands and not putting all my eggs in a basket to rely solely on casting directors, right? Hence creating my movie, right? That's what's going on right now. So
okay, exciting. So what you can do there is you can take a story of like, I was sitting, I had listened for my phone. I had checked the text boxes. I even looked at Instagram, nothing. This casting director who promised they would contact me, I've heard nothing from them, crickets. I can't take it anymore. And that's when I reached this critical moment. It's time to own my own career. And here's how I did that. Now, and then you can lay out 3 steps, and then, hey, join my course on how you can own your own career. Right?
Yeah. Well, I'm actually writing a book this year, because everybody's always like, how do you do what you do? So I'm actually writing a book that I could actually pull that into, right? From daydreamer to living the dream. So
that's excellent. And you're so good at that. Like, I think one thing that, okay, guys, audience, here's the truth. You need to follow Jen, because she takes action. You just don't sit around and wait. Like, that's what I love about you. And you've been very inspirational to me. Like, I've seen you go through, when you were learning how to do your, what is it? Fighting or whatever class.
The combat stuff. Yeah.
Like you were all into it, and you were showing like, hey, I'm working out and all of these things. And I think too, it's very inspirational because you decided to do this much later in your life, right? You haven't been doing this for a long time, correct?
No, like I only started in the past 5 years. So yeah. And then 2 of those years were taken in with COVID. So
yeah. Right. Oh, there's great working opportunities here, right? So I mean, like, I just think what has been exceptional about you is that you make a decision and then you just act on it. And it might be like, I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out as I go, but I'm just going to document this journey, which is very inspirational. And so I know there's a lot, and this is the same thing that happens with the entrepreneurs I work with. There are a lot of people who are so passionate about what they do, but they just are so afraid to put themselves out there and share on social media or share in talks and podcasts, and the truth is that the only way that you can really grow momentum is with numbers. People just need to know who you are, and you just need to create that fan base. Keep working on your passion, keep becoming excellent at it. Of course, hold that as the highest bar. It's not, I don't know, it's just not about fame. It's about becoming really excellent at what you do and contributing to your community and your industry in a way that's really meaningful. And so when you can do that really well and put yourself out there. So I would just, like one thing, this is something my sister did, and I'm so proud of her for it, is there was something that she needed to get over emotionally and mentally in order to put herself out there as a tap dancer. So she was like, Beyonce created Sasha Fierce, other people have created this other persona. So she just kind of made up something that whenever she kind of felt afraid to put herself out there, she was like, I'm just going to step into this character because this character would do it. So, there's a lot of talk about like, be authentic on social media and all that stuff. But the truth is, it is marketing. And yes, you want to be authentic and you want to show your true self. But if you are really afraid to put yourself out there and really afraid to do stuff, create a little character. Like I am doing Instagram reels, totally out of my comfort zone. I'm a very enthusiastic person. So everybody's like, oh, this is totally you. And I'm like, I'm so scared to do it. So I got sunglasses. And so you'll see sunglasses in a lot of my reels because they just give me this confidence. It's actually a trick I learned from an interview I read by, what's his name? He sings Springsteen. He's a country singer. He always wears. So he actually.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, I love his music too. But he always wore sunglasses on stage because the lights were too bright. But he said when he put them on, all of a sudden, like he had this confidence to just like be a little bit more bolder on stage. So I was like, oh, I've got to put myself out there, but I need something.
Eric Church?
So, yes, Eric Church. That's it. So I know, right? I'll be up all night. So that's my, that's my encouragement to you. If you haven't put yourself out there, like, especially on social media, because you do need a following if you're in acting and things like that.
And I just wanted to touch on that quick too. Like, it doesn't have to be a big following, because you can have like, you want to focus on quality over quantity, right? And that's the misconception. I feel like everybody goes to social media and email marketing like, oh, we got to grow something huge. Like, no, you got to grow a community. That's what you should be focused on, growing a community, not growing like a 1 million person following and only like 100,000 of them actually give a crap about you. Right. So,
right. Yeah. Or just scroll past you. Right. You want people who are actually engaged in your journey and things like that. So yeah, you're right. You don't need a lot. And even with your email list. So again, my sister, she's the best example for this. She also does a lot of tap dance teaching. Right. And so when the pandemic hit, she, she had to take a lot of her teaching online in Zoom. And so if you're a dancer, especially tap, like you need to be in the room, and tap is very, I don't know if you're familiar with tap dancing, but tap dancing is a lot of call and response, right? So it's like you make a noise, I make a noise. And it's a lot about communicating with each other's bodies and feet to create rhythms and music together, right? So she really missed that, and she realized her students were missing that. And how do you do this on Zoom, and how do you inspire people to keep them going in a pandemic? She's living in Ontario, which got shut down like 4 different times. Right? You live there, so
right.
And so what she did is she had an email list, right? And so she only had like 25 people on it, I think. And she just put out, hey, we're going to do for this year, we're going to do 10 days, always at the beginning of the month. And she put out these challenges. And it was so interesting to just watch this group of people not only become inspired, not only become better at their craft, but then when she was hosting other events, they started showing up to it, and then they'd bring friends and stuff. So, and that became an income source for her as well. So it's just like realizing that, it was a small group of 25, but they were invested, they really cared. So just start small, be excellent, keep at it. It's the same formula all the way around, right? Same as anything for building a reputation or exercise, anything. Just start small, stay consistent, and keep doing excellent work.
I know nobody wants to hear it, but consistency is key, people.
Yes.
It's so cliche, but it's so true.
And you can do it, because I'm a very inconsistent person. Like I can't believe the career I've built, and I'm just like, I'm so inconsistent. But when you do excellent work, and I fall off the consistency bandwagon. I should say that. I'll be consistent.
Everybody does. And
then start again. And you can beat yourself up for that, or you can just say, you know what, this is just part of the journey. This is all part of, I'm just going to get back in there, and I'm going to show up and I'm like, yep, still here. Here.
I did. So I recorded another coffee chat last night with Simone. She's another entrepreneur, and she teaches neuroscience stuff. Ooh. So what she was basically saying, she walked me through this exercise, and when I fall off that consistency wagon, or I need to take space, right, or I start backing off from things, it's because the voice in my head is needing to give me some time to recoup myself, right, so I don't burn out, right. So I just wanted to bring that up, because I feel like that's sometimes why we fall off the consistency wagon, because we just need to give ourselves a break. And as entrepreneurs, we have a really hard time with taking time off. So if we just give ourselves a little bit of a break, then we'll have the energy and the momentum and the motivation to get back up on that wagon and go again. Right. So
absolutely. And I would even say too, how many of us hide in our craft
Right.
when we don't want to deal with emotional issues? And I think in
Yeah.
particular, like um, even just relationship issues, right? Like
Mm.
I'm a single mom with 3
Mm.
children. And
Yeah.
there are times when all of a sudden something comes up with my kid's character, and I'm like, oh,
Mm.
I gotta deal with this, and I'm the only
Yeah.
person. I mean, which
Mm.
isn't true. I've got a great community of people around me. But
Mm.
there are times where I'll be like, put my head down and do the work because I just don't want to deal with it. It's hard. And I have to
Yeah.
face it. And I have to be the grown up who makes all the hard decisions. And I have to be the
Yeah.
brick wall that they hit. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't think I have the strength for this. Right. So you
Yeah.
will, hide in your work and like go gangbusters. And then
Mm.
it looks like you're inconsistent because all of a sudden you have to take that step back and say, I'm
Mm.
hiding. I'm
Yeah.
hiding from my life here. I'm hiding from the
Yeah.
truth. And I
Mm.
need to take a step back and do the right thing and
Yeah.
take care of that. And then once that's manageable, then you can show
Yeah.
up and be consistent again. So I think sometimes
Yeah.
it's like you're saying, your brain is saying, I need to take
Mm.
space for this. And
Mm.
then sometimes it's fear-based.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're hiding. Sometimes
Mm.
it's just legit. You said yes to too
You're
many
doing
things.
too much. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Usually I'm doing too much. And then I'm like, okay, let's just take a day.
right. Yeah. Wheels are falling off. We need to take a
let's,
day.
let's just go binge watch Netflix right now.
Right. Been there too often, right?
Yeah. But then you can't beat yourself up for it because you have to realize you needed that day. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think too, like taking a moment and saying, okay, what does it look like to build that in?
Yeah.
Because it seems like I've done a lot of Netflix days this month, right? I'm just saying, like, what does it actually look like to refresh
Mm.
myself and build
Yeah.
great work
Yeah.
boundaries?
Or like, what am I doing that's causing me to constantly need to take an entire day in my work week, right? So can I
Right.
adjust things in my work schedule that I don't need to take an entire work day off every week, right? And I can just have my weekends off, right? It's things like that,
Yeah.
or whatever schedule you want to create for yourself, right? If you're creating a schedule for yourself and you constantly feel like you need to back away from that schedule, then obviously that schedule is not a good schedule for you. So we need to tweak that. So that you
Yeah.
have space to like do what you want to do, to have breathing time and time for yourself. So
Totally. And a lot of it, I think, especially as artists, right? We
mm,
have to, I consider myself an artist, even though I
mm,
am an entrepreneur and maybe more like a copywriting is an art
yeah.
and a science, but I
Mm,
consider myself an artist. And I think one of the things that's really big too is that
mm,
when you're creating art, you're constantly like pushing against
mm,
some ideas that
mm,
you're wrestling with yourself. And so
yeah.
just like you're saying, giving yourself that time to just kind of sit with it and be like, okay,
Mm.
I'm ready to wrestle with that again.
Yeah. And that's a good point to bring up too, because as creatives, you can't force creativity. If you keep trying to pull an idea, like when you're trying to recall
Yeah.
something like the Eric Church thing, you
Yeah.
can't force your brain to recall that, right? You have
Right.
to back away from the forcing and just let it come. So
Right.
even taking that space is probably beneficial to you, because like, say you go for a walk, all of a sudden you get like a crazy cool idea because you backed away from it. You stopped forcing your brain to try and recall something or think of something. And then all of a sudden it popped into your head. Right.
That's so true. So
Mm.
so this is for the writers in the room because writer's block happens, right? And one
Mm.
thing that I used to beat myself up so much for, so sometimes I write like 54-page
Yeah.
documents that turn into
Mm.
sales pages.
Yeah.
And I like promise a 2-day turnaround. What was I thinking? I mean, I've been doing it a long time, so I know how to write
Yeah.
them. But there are days where like literally I've got 2 weeks to write this thing, and I'll go and
Yeah.
try and sit down and I'll play with a couple of ideas, I'll get them out. And
Mm.
after an hour, my brain's exhausted and I'm like,
Mm.
oh, so you've got two
Mm.
choices, right? You can push through that, which
Mhm.
sometimes is important because you've just got to
Mm.
like, there's that hard part of like building
Yeah.
muscle and like
Yeah.
doing the work. And even if like I tell myself every time I sit down to write, I'm like,
Mm.
you have permission to be brilliant, you have
Mm.
permission to write crap. And like,
Yeah.
so both extremes, do it all,
Yeah.
and then it's okay. Like you just gotta, like when you're priming the pump, sometimes the
Yeah.
dirty water's got to come out before the clean water comes out. So
Mm.
just knowing that that's part of the process. But
Mm.
then the huge shift for me, because I used to beat
Mm.
myself up so bad about writer's block,
Yeah.
was to realize that is my process. My
Yeah.
process is to avoid doing some of this stuff.
Yeah.
My brain is actually working on a lot of ideas,
Yeah.
and they're trying to formulate the best way to say this, the most powerful way to say it. Because especially with sales, and this is really important for you as an artist, is to realize you really want people to come on the journey. You really want people to change their lives. You really want people to read the story, watch the movie. Even as a technical person involved, I know quite a few, I shouldn't say quite a few, I know a few people who work in the movie industry on the tech end of things. And all of that, everybody I know in that industry really cares about storytelling, really cares about people being entertained and being moved and thinking about truth and beauty and, really hard questions sometimes, or really light ones, depending on the thing you're working on. And so just giving yourself that space to realize part of your process is to like lie on the couch for a bit, and is to kind of struggle and be like, oh, I can't think of anything. And this is, it's because you've got this wonderful thing that you want to create. It's this beautiful thing you want to put out in the world. And you know that you can't just put out garbage, right? So there's two things. I do work really well under pressure, but I've also made it my mission to like learn how to just plug away at that and not wait for the pressure moments. But I do believe my best work comes under pressure.
I wanted to circle back to what you said about giving yourself permission to write crap, because I feel like that could be applied to lots of aspects of different careers. Giving yourself permission to suck, right? Because I feel like that's like a stepping thing that holds people back. Like sometimes I'm avoiding a cake design because I'm like, I have no clue how to do this and I'm afraid I'm going to get it wrong, right? And then I just have to be like, okay, just start, right? Or same thing with auditions, right? Like if you get a major audition and you have to convey this emotion, you have no idea how to pull it out of yourself because you've never actually experienced it, you start avoiding it. So it's like, it's getting past that avoidance, and just like getting past the avoidance is acting before your brain talks you out of it, right? And that's something I've learned to master 95% of the time. There's 5% of the time I'm like, okay, I'm going to talk myself out of this.
Go ahead.
It's just like, because your brain goes on autopilot after 7 seconds, right? And then all the excuses start to come into your head. So that's one tip I can give anyone. If you are, give yourself permission, be crap, and then just take the first step instantly. Just go. Right?
I think Mel Robbins calls it like the 5-second rule.
5-second rule.
I'm going to do it. But this is the other thing. If you love creativity, if you truly love creativity, you will be crappy. You will start crappy, because the thing is that when you start and you're awful, all of a sudden you'll get one idea on how to improve it. And then you'll do it again. The whole reason I got into copywriting is I actually wrote a novel, won an award for it, and then had to figure out how to market it. Right. And now I look back and I'm like, oh my goodness, like I would totally rewrite that novel. I would do it so differently. I know so much more about storytelling. I'm really proud of I wrote a book. It won an award. People read it. It was moving for a lot of people. But I look back on that now and I'm like, oh, I'm so embarrassed by it. But the truth is like, I would not have advanced into the storytelling and the career that I have unless I had done those things, taken those steps. And it was really through the process of writing and creating that all of a sudden you get these new ideas, better ideas, brilliant ideas. You can hone them, right? Like the truth too, that one of the things that really helped me with writing, and maybe this will help somebody else in another aspect, is that if I read an interview by a professional writer, Avi. I don't know if he writes a lot of children's books, but he said, I remember reading him and he said, oh, I rewrite things at least, 6-7 times before I actually like include it in the book. And I'm like, what? Like I thought writing was just one draft. And I mean, we all hear about the shitty first draft that you're supposed to write. But it's like loving that process. And once you've done it a couple times, you just love the process of creating and having ideas. And, one of the other things too, right? Like we always talk about kill your darlings, kill your favorite things. I used to be so sad to let those go. And now they're like my personal secret gems that I'm like, that, and that's for me. And it doesn't need to be out there for everybody else. It's my favorite thing. I'm so funny in my own way, whatever, but it's mine now. And there's this thing that it's like your art becomes really precious to you after a while. And it becomes like, these are my things of art, and I don't have to share that with everybody. Yeah. And so that can become something too along the journey that you learn.
Yeah. And I think what I want to leave people with too is often we put way too much pressure on ourselves to get like so much better every single time. And Sean Cannell and Heather Torres from Think Media have this awesome saying, just aim to get 1% better every single time. Because that takes all the pressure off. If you just get 1% better every single time you do something, then you're making progress, right?
I love that. And and I talked with a businessman, quite successful in several businesses. And I was like, hey, listen, give me one piece of business advice. And he just said, if you can make 3 out of 5 good decisions, you'll be a success. Yeah. And so that's kind of been my motto. It's like, you know what, that takes the pressure off. You can start making decisions and you can take action. So lots of tips in here today, Jen.
Yeah. I know you like showed up for copywriting, but it's not a coffee chat unless we dive into mindset, people. Okay.
Right? So true.
So you've given everyone like such incredible tips, Holly. How can they work with you? How can they find you?
Okay, so right now I have a wait list going on. So this is the incredible thing. You can build a really great career and not have a website. So I do have a website, and it's just for a wait list. It's hollycwilliams.com and then /waitlist. And you can just get on my email course. I'm doing, I'll be running what's called email class. And so it's learning to write emails with class. And it's really for a person who is starting out, or maybe you do have a list, but you're like, oh, I don't feel like I'm really putting my best foot forward here. So it's really about learning to write with your style, really recognize. So there's about 4 or 5 different styles you can present your information with, and your personality, and how to write emails that people connect with that are conversational. And then also so I have a method called the story flow method. And it's really about how do you take your story and then how do you make it flow in your email, which is to feel, get people to learn, get people to make a decision, which is option. And then W is to wow them. So
that's awesome. I'll make sure to put all those, I'll make sure to put all those links below, like talking to the wrong camera. Holly, this has been like incredible. I know we've gone like way past the half an hour, but I hope everyone got such insanely valuable tips out of this copywriting, mindset, career, you name it. I think we've probably talked about it in this episode.
So great. And you know what, like, let's ask people to make comments below if you have other copywriting questions, because I'd love to come back.
Yeah, for sure. I will make sure to tag Holly, or you can tag Holly as well. I'll make sure to drop her usernames and stuff below this video as well. Yeah.
Great.
Thanks so much, Holly. It's been so good to see you. And so bye, everybody.
Bye.
It's about getting breakthrough in all different areas of your life. So most people think to get ahead, you need to put more information in this amazing brain of ours. But that's actually only part true. It actually comes down to the individual. It's the way we are wired. So, for example, you may be a highly visual person. And the other side that's holding back, what would you name that side?
Lizzie. I already named her in my head. I call the person that talks to me bad in my head, I've called her Lizzie. The lizard brain.
Okay, I love it. Awesome. Let's move over to Lizzie. And what does Lizzie give you?
Stress, headaches, doubt, fear,